very anxious. I had an anxiety attack.
Pretty much I can't post a picture of myself on Twitter without a bunch of people telling me how ugly I am. Hesitant to share a lot of myself with the world.
Rachel Zegler, thanks for coming on my show. I sold out years ago and I'm a coward. So you recently starred in the movie Snow White. Tell me, what was it like to play Snow Latino?
First of all, Steven, it was weird. But I did enjoy reimagining the character as a woke Colombian woman who looks like
That's what happens when you're a victim, is that nobody likes you. I know it sounds crazy, but those are the consequences of your actions. That's life.
She was supposed to come out smiling, the cameras were ready, reporters were waiting, and the whole room felt like a big Disney-style PR event. But behind the scenes, something very different was going on. According to 2 people who were there, Rachel Zegler never made it to the stage. She didn't even leave her dressing room. They said she broke down, crying hard, shaking, and couldn't stop. One person said she was hyperventilating, curled up in a corner, and kept saying the same thing again and again. They pulled it, they pulled it, they pulled the whole thing.
Thing is, the internet, when the internet decides that they hate somebody, they hate them. They hate them, and that's it. And I feel like, especially with people like this that have like these types of viewpoints, I don't see her coming back from this at all. I think she is totally cooked with this.
The news hit like a punch to the stomach. Just minutes earlier, Rachel had been told that Disney Plus had pulled the Snow White remake from its release schedule. No press release, no reason, just gone. This was the movie that was supposed to make her a global star. Now, it was like it never existed. Security was reportedly called in. PR staff rushed to manage the situation. One assistant tried to calm her down, but got snapped at. According to another source, the hallway outside her room was cleared, like there was a serious security threat. That's how intense it got.
We covered woke Snow White, no longer white, snow taupe, snow beige, snow swarthy, snow's not swarthy. Some kind of sediment or sand that is no longer blanc. This young woman just explained the far more egregious changes to the story than the casting of this out-of-place actress.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
This is the central feature of the movie, is that it's a movie about love, and that she is reawoken by love. They're taking the love out of it. No, it's not about Prince Charming and love anymore. It's about what a girl boss she is, because that's what little girls dream of. They dream of being a girl boss.
To the people who witnessed it, this wasn't just a breakdown. It felt like her entire career was falling apart right in front of them, but the worst part wasn't the breakdown itself. It was what came next. Because this didn't look like a simple error. It looked like a choice, a quiet cancellation, and everyone in Hollywood knew exactly what that meant.
So early on, Snow White herself, Rachel Zegler, was riddled with controversy, starting with the fact that she essentially hated Snow White. She called the original story dated and weird and said that this was going to be some sort of modern take. I guess it was going to be like a feminist, like rah-rah, she doesn't need the prince sort of take on Snow White. But I'll just let Rachel describe what she thought of Snow White for you herself.
I was scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again. Like, I'm being so serious. The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
It started as a quiet rumor. Some sharp-eyed fans noticed first, the Snow White remake had quietly vanished from Disney Plus's preview lineup. No banner, no teaser, no coming soon. Then the industry trades picked it up. Snow White was missing from Disney's official release schedule, no statement, no explanation. It wasn't delayed, it wasn't pushed back, it was just gone.
Snow White now has a trailer. It's been playing before, the Wicked movie. If you've gotten the chance to see it, we're going to react to some of it.
You'll be safe from all of us. We're going to need your help. Find Snow White.
Can you feel the girl bossification of Snow White? I think we got like 2 seconds of the prince in this trailer, so who knows? Rachel Zegler said in her original sort of PR touring that she was doing on the subject of this film that the prince might be cut totally because he's not even important and he's a stalker anyways. Of course, there's the obvious question, like how are they gonna figure out the kiss and the meeting of the prince and the apparent stalking that he does in the initial film, because a lot of the leftist posturing surrounding Snow White initially was over that non-consensual kiss that exists at the end. How they're gonna sum that up and fix it, I have no idea.
People in the industry knew right away. This wasn't a delay, it was a shutdown. In Hollywood, silence is never neutral. When a studio pulls a $120 million film from all their platforms, they're not just pausing it, they're burying it. Sources close to Disney reportedly confirmed what fans feared. Snow White was no longer considered worth releasing. Not in theaters, not on streaming, and not with Rachel Zegler. One entertainment reporter called it the cleanest corporate kill I've ever seen. Disney didn't want headlines. They didn't want drama. They just wanted the problem to disappear. And behind closed doors, they got exactly that. The film that was once meant to lead Disney's big diversity push had quietly become a liability, an embarrassment, and, worst of all, a risk.
So here are 5 reasons why everyone seems to hate Rachel Zegler. Because she was seen as unbecoming for getting the leading role in Snow White, only to often voice how much she hates the original. Second, people said she came across as arrogant when she was asked on the red carpet for Shazam, a Marvel film, why she wanted to be a part of the Marvel Universe so bad. She just needed a job.
What made you want to step into this world of DC heroes? I needed a job.
Third, people say she seems very self-serving with this cropped, very viral video.
I'm gonna stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess. I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed on.
I've seen people criticize her for starring alongside Ansel Elgort in West Side Story and seemingly standing by him during all the absolutely awful allegations that were going on and not condemning that behavior. Is it just misogyny? Some people say that Hollywood has just continued its tradition of hating on a new young actress. She has a whole hating fan base similar to the Happy.
But here's the twist. That risk had a face, and her name was Rachel Zegler. Because whether Disney admits it or not, this wasn't just about the movie, it was about her. And when she found out, it broke her. But how exactly did she find out? And what did she do in those first moments after the news hit? What happened next? We'll leave you speechless.
I'm honored. I don't know why I sound so angry right now. I'm honored. Am I a psychopath? No, I've been getting a lot of questions about how do I feel? I feel amazing. We start kind of soon, and I'm just like...
It was supposed to be a normal press event. Hair and makeup were done. Her team, what little remained, had gone over the talking points. She had rehearsed her answers, smiled at herself in the mirror, and put on the look. But then came one phone call, and everything fell apart.
It's the most emotional experience that a person can go through to know that what they're working on is something that has reached a generation of people. And now I'm a part of that legacy to some degree. It's not something I take lightly, and it's just the most emotional experience.
According to someone close to the event, Rachel Zegler was just minutes away from stepping into the spotlight when a Disney executive called, not in person, not gently, just a cold 2-minute phone call. The message? It's been pulled from the slate. No announcement will be made at this time. That was it. No warning, no explanation, no spin, just the end of everything, delivered like a business memo.
I'm sorry.
Rachel, you got time to sign some autographs for us, Rachel? Rachel, Pete? Rachel, you got time to sign some, Rachel? Maybe on the way out?
It was supposed to be a routine press event. Hair and makeup were done. Her team, what was left of it, had prepped the talking points. Rachel had rehearsed her answers, smiled at herself in the mirror, and put on the look. But everything fell, apart with one phone call. An insider at the event says Rachel was just minutes away from going on stage when a Disney executive reached out. Not in person, not with empathy, just a cold 2-minute call. The message? It's been pulled from the slate. No announcement will be made at this time. That was it. No warning, no context, no spin. Rachel stood in silence as the call ended. Then she asked, "What do you mean, pulled?" But no one in the room had an answer, because they hadn't been told either, and that's when it snapped. A nearby crew member described the shift as instant. Calm turned to chaos. Rachel, reportedly threw her phone across the room hard enough to crack the case. She began pacing, muttering, crying, then gasping. "They used me," she screamed. "They used me, and then they threw me away." The staff weren't prepared. Someone tried calling her publicist. No answer. Someone else tried to reach a producer. Also nothing. And then she collapsed. Literally. Dropped to her knees, clutching her chest, struggling to breathe. A makeup artist later told reporters, "She looked like someone who'd been hit by a truck made of betrayal." Paramedics were never officially called, but a medical staffer at the venue reportedly stepped in to stabilize her. By the time Disney's on-site PR team arrived, Rachel wasn't speaking, just sitting there, red-eyed, motionless. She never made it to the press event. She didn't return any calls or messages that day. And from that moment on, Rachel Zegler went silent. But this breakdown, it didn't come out of nowhere. The truth is, this moment had been building for months. Rachel Zegler didn't fall from grace overnight. It started with a single quote. "It's not 1937 anymore. Snow White doesn't need a man to save her." It was meant to sound empowering, but to millions of Disney fans, it came off as arrogant, dismissive, even hostile, toward the very legacy that made her famous. And she didn't stop there. In multiple interviews, Rachel mocked the original film, took shots at the prince, and seemed to wear her disdain for classic Disney like a badge of honor. Clips of her interviews went viral, chopped up, memed, and mocked across TikTok and YouTube. Late-night hosts turned her into a punchline. Even some feminists criticized her tone, calling it performative and ego-driven. And it wasn't just the fans. Allegedly, Disney executives were getting nervous, too. Some reportedly warned her team to rein her in. They didn't, or maybe they couldn't. And the damage kept snowballing. Not My Snow White began trending. Fan edits mocked her performance. Side-by-sides showed her against Disney actresses who honored their roles, like Emma Watson as Belle or Lily James as Cinderella. Then came the petitions. Over 50,000 people signed to have her recast. Others demanded the film be canceled entirely. Merch quietly disappeared from pre-order pages. Sponsors backed off. And through it all, Rachel stayed loud, visible, almost defiant, until she wasn't. Because when the backlash turned from noise into silence, everything changed. That's when the firing started. That's when the walkouts began. And that's when Rachel Zegler's name began vanishing. Not just from trailers, but from conversations. And behind the scenes, it was unraveling even faster. Snow White wasn't her only problem. There were lawsuits, screaming matches, internal chaos. She was losing control of the narrative. Even the people closest to her started walking away. But the darkest turn was still to come. Because as her career collapsed, Hollywood was already making new moves. Moves that made one thing painfully clear. Rachel Zegler wasn't just being removed. She was being replaced. The Snow White cancellation made headlines. But behind the scenes, Rachel's entire foundation was crumbling. Her inner circle, gone. Her agent, fired. Her manager, fired. Even her publicist, reportedly cut. Ties after multiple conflicts. All within a single week. No public statements, no goodbye posts, just silence. Insiders called it a scorched earth reset. But others were blunter. One Hollywood executive allegedly told a trade outlet, "She's radioactive. No one wants to touch her right now." And it wasn't just Disney. Reports from Broadway painted a bleak picture. Rachel Zegler had been cast in the revival of Evita. But behind the curtain, it wasn't a comeback. It was a crisis. Rumors of explosive fights during rehearsals began to swirl, with shouting matches and even walkouts. One cast member reportedly told their agent, "If she's still in, I'm out." The production went into full damage control mode, but the damage had already been done. Whispers of lawsuits began to circulate. Talk of financial penalties surfaced, and the most shocking rumor of all, that Rachel could be held personally liable for breaching her contract, facing a $5 million fine for early termination. Then came the sponsors. Brands that had once lined up to work with her began quietly pulling back. Her image disappeared from marketing campaigns, promotional budgets were slashed. Even her Instagram began to change, fewer sponsored posts, less engagement. A digital silence was beginning to mirror the real-world one. And behind closed doors, the industry had already started to move on. New names were being floated for projects Rachel was once considered a lock for: Jenna Ortega, Isabella Merced, Auli Cravalho. Familiar roles, familiar titles, but Rachel's name was nowhere in the mix. The girl who had been launched by Spielberg, who was once crowned Disney's future, was now a cautionary tale, a warning sign. But while Hollywood turned its back, something even more chilling was unfolding. This wasn't just a career collapse anymore, it was becoming personal. Rachel wasn't just disappearing from headlines, she was disappearing from herself. One insider didn't hold back. Rachel Zegler went from Hollywood's golden girl to a liability faster than anyone I've ever seen. And the worst part? She did it to herself. Executives who once praised her were now whispering what they used to deny. Casting directors were allegedly calling her uncoachable. Producers were labeling her a PR nightmare. And perhaps the harshest judgment of all, she's not box office safe anymore. One talent rep reportedly warned a client, avoid association. At all costs, she's still trending, but for all the wrong reasons. Meetings that once revolved around building Rachel's next big moment were now focused on quietly replacing her. Allegedly, Disney has already begun talks about rebooting Snow White again, this time with a safer choice: someone who won't ignite controversy or mock the legacy they're meant to represent. The names being floated: Jenna Ortega, Auli Cravalho, even Selena Gomez, a proven star with mass appeal. And as those names climb, Rachel's continues to fall. Even her former allies have gone silent. Spielberg has offered no public support. Her former co-stars, radio silent. Not a single major figure has come to her defense. Because here's the uncomfortable truth: Hollywood doesn't run on loyalty, it runs on risk. And right now, Rachel Zegler looks like a failed investment. But while the studios stay quiet and the job offers vanish, a different kind of conversation is beginning to take shape. A human one. What happens when the star you built starts to break and the entire world can see every crack? That's what's happening now. At first, the backlash was nearly unanimous. Memes, mockery, petitions to recast her, even parody videos that racked up millions of views. Rachel Zegler had become the internet's favorite target, a symbol of what many saw as Hollywood arrogance wrapped in a Disney dress. But something has started to shift. After the Snow White erasure, the Backstage collapse, and the silence from her peers, a darker question is creeping into the discourse. Is she okay? On social media, the mood is splitting. Some users are doubling down, saying things like, "She asked for this. You can't act smug, then play the victim." But others are starting to see something different. They're noticing the eerie stillness. No new posts, no press appearances, Instagram stories being archived, and then came the cryptic post. A black screen, no caption, followed by a reel set to haunting lyrics about being forgotten. It vanished within hours, but not before fans screen recorded it. Some interpreted it as a cry for help. Others accused her of manipulation. But regardless of opinion, one thing became clear. The conversation had shifted. Reddit threads began appearing with titles like, "This went too far." A few influencers, some of the same ones who had previously mocked Rachel Zegler, began quietly walking it back, warning their audiences not to kick someone who was already clearly down. Mental health advocates started weighing in too, reminding people that public humiliation, especially on a global stage, doesn't just disappear when the comments stop. It lingers. It leaves scars. Then the tone shifted. Someone close to Rachel, an anonymous friend, reportedly told a gossip outlet that her family was worried, that she wasn't speaking to anyone, that she hadn't left the house in days, that she seemed completely numb. None of it has been officially confirmed. But in moments like this, it doesn't need to be. Because now, the silence is saying more than any publicist ever could. The headlines have started to fade, the meme cycles have slowed down, and as the noise dies out, what remains isn't just a failed film or a flopped PR campaign, it's a young woman, alone, isolated, and unsure of what's next. That's the question haunting everyone now. Where does Rachel Zegler go from here? Right now, she's not trending for a new role. She's not winning awards. She's not walking red carpets or giving interviews. She's just gone. And for someone who was once positioned as the future of Hollywood, that silence is almost deafening. There's been no official statement, no apology, no explanation. Just a digital void. Rumors, leaks, and a long list of vanished headlines. Disney has moved on. Her co-stars have moved on. Even the fans who once obsessed over her every word have grown quiet, because now there's nothing left to react to. The Snow White remake is gone. The Evita revival is crumbling. Her inner circle, agent, manager, publicist has vanished. And Rachel, missing in action, some believe this is just a chapter closing, that she'll regroup, rebrand, and make a comeback. After all, Hollywood loves a redemption arc. But others aren't so sure, because this kind of damage isn't just career-ending, it's identity-shattering. The fallout wasn't just professional, it was deeply personal, painfully public, and brutally fast. The kind of breakdown that doesn't get patched up with a few months offline. The kind that changes a person. Maybe permanently. And maybe that's the real tragedy. Not the movie being pulled or the backlash online, but the quiet, gradual erasure of someone who once had the world at her feet and watched it all slip away. Where she goes from here is anyone's guess. Maybe she fades forever. Maybe she fights to come back. Or maybe she follows Hollywood's lead and stays silent. Because sometimes the loudest thing a fallen star can do is say nothing.